Hi, ladies. I'm just going to wait to see who else is going to hop on. If it's just me and Aubrey, know that we will record this. It's in the process of recording, so you can make sure that you tap on this later. We will be sure to post it. I'll upload it to YouTube, so it will be there for you. All right, looks like Aubrey's hopping on. And Julie, great. I'm so glad you're here, Julie and Aubrey.
Hey, Rachel.
Hi. All right, just making sure you all can hear me because sometimes I don't have the volume set up. Okay.
Yep, I can hear you.
Perfect. Hi, Julie.
Hi.
Glad you could join us.
I know, me too. Who didn't know?
Oh, and is this Jonah?
Yeah, this is Jonah.
Hi, buddy.
Oh, hi.
Oh, many points.
He's so cute.
I totally agree with you. Thank you.
Yes. Aw. Well, it might just be us. I'm not sure who all can hop on at this time. I know it's probably not the best time for everybody, but it's just a busy week this week. So, Aubrey, whenever you want to start, or if we want to wait a minute or two, I'm fine with that as well.
We can go ahead and get started. Might as well, and then if we need to repeat anything as others join, we can, or obviously I think everybody knows we post a replay. And I have to preface, today's weird time is totally my fault. My husband is in North Carolina this week, and so normally in the evenings I have him tag team while I get on and do some lives, and I'm going solo this week, so it was going to be a little too late for most people once she goes to bed. So thanks everybody just for being flexible. Really, today's live today is going to serve sort of as a refresher to last week in some ways, with some practical tips now that we're actually really diving in and implementing all of the strategies with week one. So first of all, welcome everybody to week one officially. And I hope Low Carb Day is off to a great start. So again, really what we're going to cover today is kind of some refreshers, some tips. And then if there are any questions that you have, feel free to either type them in, or we'll even leave time at the end to open it up to people who have some questions that they want to go over live as well. So I'm going to start with just some reminders. First of all, if you have not yet completed the new client assessment form, Rach and I ask that you do that as soon as possible. There is some information in there as well that's a liability waiver that is important for us to have on hand. And so we hope it doesn't take too long to fill out, just a couple of minutes. So if you haven't, or you're listening to the replay and you're like, oh, I haven't done that, please make sure to get that in today. Similarly, if you have not yet taken before photos or jotted down before measurements, we also really encourage you to do so. I think I mentioned this last week, but the very first time I did my Faster Way round, I was feeling a little bit, I would say, like not confident physically. And I was like, I'm not going to ever really want to look at my before photos. And so I regretted later on not having that on hand, because even if it's just for your own reference, it's a wonderful tool to be able to see before and after. Same thing with the scale. So it's optional. You can do like a pre-round weigh-in. As you guys know already, we are not big advocates of weighing yourself throughout the program for so many reasons. You heard us last week really go into why. But just for before and after purposes, you're welcome to go ahead and do that. And then you can hide it or get rid of it or whatever you need to do to get the scale out of your site so it's not tempting. You can do that for the duration of the program. A couple other tips as you get started. So if you haven't done so, we also recommend pinning our Facebook group page to your Facebook groups. That way it stays kind of on top and it's way easier to access. And so if you need help with doing that, let us know. But there's an option on our group page that says more. Click on more, and then it says pin to groups. And so again, highly recommend that just for your own ease. Additionally, with the portal, and remember, I say this just because I have gotten some questions on it. Our Facebook group is different than the Faster Rate of Fat Loss portal, and it's different from MyFitnessPal, the app. So we kind of leverage all three in one as resources. For your portal access, you have your own unique log on information that was sent to you from Faster Way to Fat Loss after you registered. Once you get in there, and I think most of you ladies now have visited the portal, but if you haven't, since this is a brand new portal, save it as a favorite. That way, when you want to go look into it daily, you're not always having to try to track down the link and into your email and whatever's easiest for you. So again, just some tips and tricks there for you. Otherwise, just so you ladies know, Rachel and I do our best to be active in the group as much as possible throughout the day. Absolutely, we will. You'll probably see us the most in the mornings and in the evenings. She and I actually both work outside of the Faster Way to Fat Loss part-time as well. And so again, we will do our absolute best to respond as promptly as possible. We just wanted to let you know our availability, not to be alarmed or concerned. If a little bit of time goes by, we'll definitely respond same day. And I think it's going fine so far, but just in case any of you are curious. So I'm based in Central Time. Rach is on Eastern Time. And then I know we have ladies that cover like all of the time zones within the US within our group, which is pretty cool too. So just know we will get to you, but if it's a little bit of lag time, it might be because we're at our other job or have other things like that as well. And then today, and I know Rachel's going to go into a little bit more detail here for you, but today is the first day where we ask you to post your MyFitnessPal information. And that would be that nutrients tab, as well as your macros pie chart. And so you can add those as photos in the comments. I've had ladies who've wondered how to do that before. And again, if you have questions, you can ask us and we can kind of help walk you through that. The reason we ask for both is twofold. First of all, your nutrients tab shows us your total nutrient grams that you took in compared to your goal. And then the pie chart shows what your macro percentage splits are. And so this is so we can help encourage you and give you guidance and say, awesome, it's on track, or maybe bump this up or lower this a little bit, especially as we get started. You can definitely do it just at the end of the day. A lot of ladies do it before they go to bed, whenever it works for you, especially as we get started. Sometimes clients want us to look and say, hey, this is my plan for the day. Does it look good? What would you recommend? And we can do that too. So that starts this evening. And then next, Rachel is going to go into a little bit more kind of reminders around low carb day, regular macro, so that as you really start digging in this week, you have some of that information top of mind. So Rachel, I'll just turn it over to you then.
Sounds great. Okay, so one thing, Aubrey, you did a great job. Thanks for going over all those reminders. Definitely pin that portal. It's so important. One thing I was going to mention too, Aubrey and I like both the nutrient tab that you post and the macro chart, as she had said. And I think sometimes clients get confused about like the macro chart and the nutrient chart. We want you to pay close attention to your macronutrient chart. Pay attention to those goals, because you could have your chart could look good and balanced, but you could be severely under eating, which is why we like to see that nutrient chart. So make sure you're not under eating by focusing on those gram goals. It's so important, and we'll call you out on it, not like to, slap your wrist or anything or hand. It's mainly just to guide you in this process. So realize, like, if we say something, it's all in, we just want to help. So thanks for going over that, Aubrey. Yeah, I'm going to tap in on the food cycle. Just a heads up, my daughter's screaming in the back room. She might come out and interrupt me, so I do apologize if that happens. So let's go over, though, the food cycle. Just a brief recap. Obviously, Monday and Tuesday are low carb days. So make sure, if you're not doing low carb, that you start on it right now. If you are a lady, which is our entire group, I don't know why I just said that, you're eating 50 grams of net carbs or under. And remember, net carbs are coming from the total amount of grams of carbs that you're consuming, and you're subtracting the grams of fiber. If you are nursing, you should be somewhere around 100 grams of net carbs. But you also need to pay close attention to your supply. Make sure that you're drinking enough, and if you're drinking enough and you're hitting that 100-gram net carbs, but you still feel like you're struggling with your supply, you're going to want to increase that a little bit. And then for all our pregnant ladies out there, you want to be between 100 and 150 grams of net carbs, because carbs are super important for the development of that fetus, that baby. So just kind of a reminder on there. Remember too, okay, sorry, I told you they'd come out. So just a heads up too, the macro pie chart is going to look a little bit off today. It's okay if it's predominantly fat. So, I mean, you're looking at maybe 50%, 60% fat. Like, it's going to be a lot of red. Don't be intimidated by that. One other thing too, you're going to have about 20 to 35% protein, and then 10 to 20% is going to be carbs when you're looking at the macro pie chart. Again, pay close attention to those macronutrient gram goals. Pay attention. You want to be under 50 grams of net carbs. Protein grams are going to stay the same. But the fat, remember, it's okay if those practically double, because you are decreasing the amount of carbs you have, so you need to make sure those calories come elsewhere, and that elsewhere is going to be fat. All right, just a quick recap on the normal macro days. Those are Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Those days, they're going to look normal. You're going to have 50% carbohydrates, 20% protein, 30% fat in your macro pie chart. And so pay close attention to those gram goals. Again, you're going to hit those gram goals that the MyFitnessPal app has set for you. And then lastly, our low macro days are on Friday and Sunday, and you'll be consuming 25% less all around. So make sure you reach out to us if you need a little bit of help doing that math. Aubrey and I are more than willing to help you figure that out. And you're going to be eating very similarly to what you would eat on a normal macro day, just less. So if you have questions, like I said, reach out to us. Oh, one other thing I want to mention that I think we forgot to mention last week. If you are pregnant, we don't want you doing the low macro days. We need to make sure that you're getting in the right amount of nutrients and stick to the normal macro days. If you're nursing, you can definitely try those low macro days. Just pay close attention to your supply. And if you see that tanking or really dropping, we're going to bump you up to a normal macro day. So reach out to us again. All right, let's go into some tips about our low carb days. So remember, actually, I don't know if we mentioned this last week. I think we did briefly, but when you start diving into a low macro day, I got totally distracted by my daughter, so I apologize. Low macro day, carb day. We're talking about the low carb day. On a low carb day, when we first start implementing this, it is going to be a little bit challenging. I think it's very difficult to get used to, but once you're used to it, it's going to be very easy to do. You will find it gets much easier. Please go to bed. Please. She wants to say hi real quick, and then she's going to bed. Now off you go.
Hi, honey.
I'm sorry. Okay. To bed, please. Okay. I'm so sorry. My brain's all over now.
You're fine. We're family friendly around here. We get it. We totally get it. No worries.
Okay. You might be feeling like a little bit hangry, a little bit off, maybe even like lethargic when you first start implementing these low carb days. That is natural because your body is transitioning from being a sugar burner to trying to burn fat. So that will eventually go away. It takes about 2 to 3 weeks for you really to get rid of that. We call it kind of the low carb day flu. So if you feel like you got the flu, that's just because you're not used to those low carb days. So just give it time, be patient with it, and realize come Wednesday, you get all those carbs again, okay? Alrighty, so here's my tip number 1. Make sure you enter in your macros, your food, the night before or the morning of into the MyFitnessPal app. That's just going to help make sure that you are successful. When you know what you're eating and you've planned ahead, you don't have to guess, like, is this high in fat? Is this moderate protein? Is this low carbs? You already know what you need to go to make sure you get in those important macronutrients. All right, second thing I'm going to bring up, my second tip, have simple go-to snacks, especially a lot of us are mamas in here. We're on the go a lot. Have those go-to snacks, again, that are high in fat, moderate protein, low in carbs. Some of the things I think Aubrey and I tend to go to are like hard-boiled eggs. Jerky is a good one to have on hand, like hummus with veggies, olives. Like if you like olives, those are a great go-to. Avocado. I love to just have, like, in the morning when I break my fast, I put MCT oil into my coffee on low carb days. That way I'm really starting high with the fat. So make sure you have your go-tos, and nut butters, nuts, those things are great to go to as well. Have those on hand, have them in your pantry. Third tip, drink your water, okay? We can't emphasize enough how important this really is. It's especially important for detox. It's going to help with that bloating you might be experiencing on these low carb days. Realize protein's really hard for the digestive system to actually digest, and water is going to help you in that process of digestion. Aubrey mentioned last week too, if you are close to your breaking your fast, you're feeling a little bit hungry, sometimes it's not hunger. That same signal that's sent to our brain telling us that we're hungry is the same signal that's telling us that we're thirsty. So make sure you're taking in that water, taking half your ounces in weight of water. And this is the big thing I want to emphasize on water. Water is so important in helping us burn fat. I'm just going to dive into the science briefly on it. When you intake water, it's actually going to help kidney production. So your kidneys filter out the blood, filter out waste in the blood. And you naturally have waste in your blood from the breakdown of muscle tissue, the breakdown of cells, okay? Just waste in general that your body's trying to get rid of. And when you actually are taking in a good amount of water, your kidneys can function optimally. However, if you're not taking in an appropriate amount of water, your kidneys have to outsource that work. They can't kind of keep up with getting rid of that toxic waste. And so the kidneys reach out to the liver. Now, if you know, the liver is its primary role is to help you metabolize fat, to use that as a usable source of energy. But if the liver is busy trying to help get rid of toxins from the body, which obviously it does play a small role in that, but the kidneys play the larger role there. So you're basically pulling your liver from burning that fat. And so it's kind of it's just hard because you're trying to burn fat, but because you're not drinking enough water, you're taking like a step backwards. So realize it's very important to help us burn fat. And then also, when we're intaking enough water, your cells can actually relax too. They don't have to hold on to all that excess water, and your cells can actually go through great metabolism, cellular metabolism as well. So drink that water, okay? It's going to help you get through every day of the week. Tip number 4, vary your proteins. And this is why I say this. I think sometimes it's easy to get bored with what we're eating. Keep it simple because as you start off, because it's easier to track when you keep it simple. But that doesn't mean you have to eat chicken every day or, lean beef every day. On these days, on the low carb days, take in that high fatty meat because you can, okay? You want to make sure you're upping that fat. And so go to those fats or those meats that are higher in fat. And I think too, if we don't vary our protein or vary our foods, you kind of get into a rut. And when you get into a rut, you want to do this. You want to tap out. We don't want you to tap out. We don't want you getting bored. Reach out to us if you need other ideas. Hopefully you've seen Aubrey and I on our Instagram pages and things like that. We'll be sharing recipes, some easy go-tos. So make sure you follow us there if you aren't already. One other thing I'm going to mention about protein though, it's good to vary your proteins, but on these low carb days, make sure you're not overindulging in the protein. Hit those gram goals, but don't go significantly over them because your body's actually going to convert that protein through, it's called a process called gluconeogenesis, and it actually converts that protein into carbs. And with a low carb day, our goal is to actually decrease carbs so we tap into our fat stores. So if you are taking in high amounts of protein over and above what you should be taking in, you're not going to burn fat as we want to see you do. And then the last tip I'm going to give you. So tip number 5, focus on those healthy fats, okay? You really want to hone in on those fats on this day. So make sure, fish is a good one, nuts, as we mentioned before, avocados, coconut oil. I kind of mentioned all those before, but really focus on the fat and then go for the protein next. Just keep those carbs low. Hopefully that helps. And I'm going to let Aubrey transition here to giving a couple tips and strategies for really implementing a good normal macro day.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. So for regular macro, as you guys remember, that essentially is normal carb intake. So like your full gram goal totals. And I will first say that regular macro can be a little challenging the first time you do it when you're coming right off 2 days back to back of low carbs, because you're really focused on fat and, little carbs. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now we need to get those carbs back up. They're amazing because you get to have those really healthy carbs again, but sometimes ladies struggle. And we mentioned that so that you keep an eye on those healthy fats when you transition into Wednesday, because it's very common again at first for a lot of ladies to be way over in fat on those days. And again, it's just because you just did that 2 days in a row. The reason why replenishing those carbs is so critical is because remember, you just spent 2 days depleting your glycogen stores and burning through fat, but your body now needs glucose or glycogen again to rebuild those stores for energy, for building lean muscle, to fuel your workout. And so those carbohydrates are going to be really, really important. So for that, I know Rachel talked a little bit about how to focus on protein, especially healthy types of meat, high fatty meats on low carb day. On a regular macro day, we would encourage you to look at leaner meat. So like chicken, turkey, loin, so pork loin or other types of meat that have the word loin in them tend to be a little bit leaner. You could do lean beef. There are some seafoods that are a bit more lean. And so it will just take some playing around with, right? So it might just be seeing different things that you like or whatever. And it really is a learning process and kind of as you go. And so because you are focusing more on those complex carbohydrates, so like fruits and vegetables, oats, it could be beans, legumes, those types of things, you don't have to worry as much about fat, because once you're focused on that whole food nutrition in those areas, the fat will come. And so don't worry about that as much. I know that's a little bit of a shift in thinking coming off of those low carb days. Same thing as Rachel mentioned, from low carb, you would apply to regular macro in terms of protein. Remember that protein stays the same every single day. For some of you, you may benefit from taking a probiotic to help with some gut health as well as digesting protein. It's not required. Remember, we don't require any supplements or vitamins or anything like that because you're focused on whole food nutrition, but it can be helpful, even if it's not like a probiotic pill or gummy or something like that. Drinks like kombucha might be helpful as well. And let us know if you have any questions on that, but a lot of ladies benefit from that. I think that's most of what I had in that particular portion. If anybody needs to go back to reference some of the tips that we shared last week, remember that we have a training that's specifically on whole food nutrition, and then one on carb cycling. Obviously, we have the intermittent fasting one too, but the carb cycling and whole food nutrition trainings are really helpful for even specific types of food that you may want to look into as well. So Rachel, anything else that you'd like to add for regular macro tips?
Yeah, you did great on that, Obs. I think with the normal macro day, again, don't be afraid of those carbs. Really take in those carbs because they're going to power you through your workout. You need those carbs now because you're so depleted. You need them now to help you power through that strength training workout. And then one other thing too, like I tend to be a perfectionist, and yeah, I'm a perfectionist. I'm just going to say it. When I first started this, I was trying to nail it right on the head. Like, okay, 230 grams of carbs. That's exactly what I need on these normal macro days. Give yourself a little bit of grace, somewhere within like under 10 grams, over 10 grams. That's okay. We just don't want to see you significantly under where you're under eating, or significantly over, because that's when our bodies will store it as fat. So I think that's it, Aubrey. And again, as she had mentioned, make sure you ask your questions because we are here for you. I'm going to just kind of close this out with a couple of closing remarks. First of all, remember, like guys, we are focused in the Fast Away on progress, not perfection. And that's tough because you're obviously here because you want to change some things, and we're excited about this, but we don't have to be frustrated if it's not perfect. So realize like every little step you make is taking a step towards greater health and wellness. And so it's all right if you occasionally have a misstep or make a mistake. Like, we are here to support one another, and realize like one little mistake or a mess up is not going to affect your overall results. So just stay encouraged, stay positive, and when you feel discouraged, reach out to us. We want to know like, hey, I'm just struggling here. But also try encouraging somebody in our group. We really want to make this a great community for you. Reach out to one another, encourage one another, uplift each other. If you have great tips and strategies of your own or great recipes, share that on our page, because we're all learning and growing with one another. And so be helpful to one another as we can, like Aubrey and I want to be just as helpful to you guys. And then last thing I'm just going to mention, it's common for it to take 6 to 8 weeks before you start to notice change in your body, before you start seeing change. And it typically takes around 12 weeks for others to notice that change. So realize like this is not a quick fix, as we've mentioned before. This is about maintaining and living out a lifestyle. And it will take time, but your body will. If you are practicing these techniques and these strategies, you will burn fat. You will see a difference, and others will start to notice. But give yourself grace, give yourself time, because it takes time. So I think that is it. We appreciate you, Julie, for being here, and for everybody else that can catch the replay. Julie, I'm going to unmute you here to see if you had any questions, but if not, everybody else can make sure you put questions in the comments below when I post this, post it. So any questions?
I don't think I have any this time. Surprise. I always do.
We love your questions, Julie. They're always really good. So
And
keep them coming.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And your questions are going to, oh, sorry, I'm interrupting. Your questions are going to help somebody else. So anytime any of you guys have questions, like realize like it's probably a question somebody else has. So it's great. We want to hear those questions. So if they come up later, just put it in the comments below this post and we'll be happy to answer them.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, honey.
Bye.